Thank God for 988. I am alive today and extremely thankful to be alive. There was a little voice in my head saying that things were going to get better. The day after I called 988 and went through a really painful day, I opened up onto social media to let people know what was going on.
Look, parenting is difficult. It's not easy, especially in today's society. So we are continuously moving at a pace that is just not humanly possible. And we now have a change that had never existed prior in the form of technology.
Again, working out is a way for you to naturally increase your vibration, and it will naturally increase your frequency, and it will naturally change your internal conversation to a positive conversation.
This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
We got to get down some rabbit holes here on Vibe Science, but it's always funny. I'm like, because when you think about growing up, I'm going on to a complete tangent, but hey, this is what makes podcasting great. When you're growing up, it's R-rated, it's explicit. It attracts you. I got to listen. So maybe it's having that reverse psychology, pulling more people in.
It does. We get a lot of comments about the name, and then once they find out what the podcast is about and they start listening, they're like, God, this is nothing like any other mental health podcast out there. And that's kind of what we were aiming for. Yeah.
There it is. I'm always joined by Chris down in hot Miami. Hey, Chris, G-Rex and I were talking. She got the hell out of South Florida and went up north. So you guys are on different ends here, but I think you guys she used to be in that same stomping territory. I don't know where you were, G-Rex, in South Florida.
We were in just outside of Fort Lauderdale by about 20 minutes.
Yep.
But it got too hot and too people-y.
Very hot this time of year. It's a steam room down here right now.
It is gross. And I lived through enough hurricanes to last me a lifetime, so I will take snow over a hurricane any day.
And more power to you. I might follow your lead here in the next couple of years.
It can be exhausting. I mean, having to think about that, every other, week when it's this time of year through, when October now. It seems to be extending every month, but
yeah,
it's crazy.
It's just hot. It's what it is. It's hot and gross.
Yeah, I just had to drag my dog outside. He was not into it. It was a quick, literally 20 seconds outside and back in.
He's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would much more prefer the snow too.
I need an air-conditioned pee pad.
Yeah.
And I'm not going out anymore. I get it. I didn't want to go outside either. It's hot.
Talk to us about shit that goes on in our heads. I think that alone and why and how and when you started it sets up a lot of your story and what you're doing, G-Rex. So maybe we just start there.
Perfect. So the podcast started because of me. On Christmas Day 2022, I attempted suicide. Thank God for 988. I am alive today and extremely thankful to be alive. There was a little voice in my head saying that things were going to get better. And so, the day after I called 988 and went through a really painful day, I opened up onto social media to let people know what was going on. I'm a true extrovert and an empath, and nobody knew how depressed I was, not even my wife. And I had about 200 people reach back out to me and say thank you, because now they felt seen and heard, and they weren't alone in their own depression. So that was my first healer. And then my second healer was laughter. And my co-host, Dirty Skittles, we worked together. We had worked together for about 7 years. And so every day we would call each other and we would laugh about shit you should never, ever, ever, ever laugh about. But here's what happens when you laugh, right? It reduces that cortisol and gets some serotonin going and gets your endorphins up. And so no matter how crappy the day is, you can circle back on that conversation and just start laughing again. And so it was during one of those conversations, she's like, hey, we should do a podcast. And I'm like, okay, let's do a podcast. So we released our first episode on February 14th, 2023. In honor of my mom. I buried my mom in 1997 on Valentine's Day. And as part of my healing journey, I kind of wanted to change the trajectory of that day and make it a little less crappy. And so we released, and we thought, oh God, we're just going to do 3 episodes. We're just going to do this as fun. Okay, joke was on us. Come April, we'd already gotten 10,000 downloads. And I'm like, who the fuck's listening to us? In the early days, we were just idiots, right? But when I had thought about my own journey and going through my own mental health, there wasn't another podcast out there like ours. A lot of the mental health podcasts were very clinical, very dry, didn't feel like they were helpful. And we wanted to make sure that in every episode, no matter how hard the subject was, is that we injected a little laughter into that. And people would be like, how can you laugh about really hard stuff? Well, when you interject laughter in with really hard stuff, it makes it easier to digest.
I think, and I see this, when you grow up with very little, our country's progressed a lot, and when you grow up with nothing, and you have something, and you grew up with nothing, you want to overcompensate with the children, but you're not. But you're not also helping in that regard. But I think a lot of it can be chalked up to that. And again, at a certain point, that doesn't become a crutch or an excuse. But Tom, isn't that some of it?
You nailed that one perfectly, because I am a generation. The boomer was the generation that had from the greatest generation, and they went and fought World War II. But they also were the generation that grew up during the Depression in ways that we have no idea. My grandfather was the oldest son in a family of 8, and his great-grandfather, passed away. And at the age of 16, he had to go to work because he was the man of the house, left school, and never turned back, and was a success in his entire life by raising his family as a kid. Now, put our youth into that position today, it's not going to happen. Culture and times have changed and here's the thing that I wanted to make the point of. The greatest generation made a mistake by giving the boomers too much. They went without. They went to war. They knew sacrifice, and they wanted our kids, us, to not, to have it better. Backfire. Look at the 60s. You know what? That generation of boomer, there's 2 of us. The generation that chose to go to Vietnam or not, and the generation that was too young to go. And we all sat in there, and our behaviors set in motion what we're looking at today, because the boomers, society needed to be changed. The generation of my grandparents, it wasn't working anymore. The sin of the boomer generation was they changed society, but they didn't replace it with something equal or better. And that is the low, slow roll of what we have today. And if there's anyone to blame, it sits right now in front of you as a boomer who did not understand the sacrifice that was necessary. And then it went to Generation X. That was the beginning change. And what we're sitting at and looking at today is because of the misunderstanding of the greatest generation raising the boomer generation. And we just had the big, beautiful bill signed. And what that was all about was because how society has shifted, we just gave our grandkids a bill, not a great, big, beautiful bill, but the financial requirement of paying that back. And look at our kids today. Are they prepared for the sacrifice that they're going to have to make in old age when that bill comes due? So that's my circle. I came back around.
Yeah, no, but it's a fascinating topic. where it's, I mean, and I don't know how you can even decide that you don't believe like that's where we're at or what caused it. It's so obvious, with where the generations are, and that I see, I don't know. Again, I try to, we had a guest on that said, I've stopped judging. I've started observing. And I'm trying to live by that mantra of not judge, but observe. And my observation just is that we, as parents, it's hard. It's kind of like, I'm getting to a point here, but I want to make sure I say this the right way. It's easier for the parent to coddle the child because they don't have to watch the pain. And then the child it's about like what's easy versus what's hard for both the parent and the kid. So it's not just, oh, I'm doing it. I probably coddle him too much because, I just don't want him to have to go through that or whatever. That's a cop-out because you've just made it easy for you and them. Would you agree with that, Tom?
Yes. And the piece with it is look, parenting is difficult. It's not easy, especially in today's society. So we are, continuously moving at a pace that is just not humanly possible. And we now have a change that had never existed prior in the form of technology. And we haven't even touched on how the technology affects the family, the kid, the society. And it plays such a huge role because that genie can't be put back in the bottle. And now, what is it? GPT just came out with, version 5. And this is the PhD level one. So now you've got your kids going to school with a PhD in their back pocket. And how do you as the parent move with that? In the greatest thing that I as parents is to teach our kids how to live in this society.
Talk to us a little bit, specific, like how this works. Like, what are we doing to like rewire our minds?
Yeah. Well, the beautiful thing is, our minds aren't static, right? I know you guys have had a lot of incredible guests in the past. I'm sure they've told you that, where neuroplasticity is a real thing. The blueprint that we were indoctrinated into as children, right? Whether it's just our parents telling us the way that life works or who we are, or other authority figures or culture or media, or even the misinterpretations that we created in the past as kids, right? Something happens and we make up some random story that's not even true. And then we hold that as a deep meaning about ourselves, which is usually disempowering. Like, I'm unlovable, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, etc., right? Or I don't belong. And we carry that with us into adulthood. Now, again, the good thing is we can rewire that because of neuroplasticity. And what these tools do is they work with the subconscious mind. So a lot of the different modalities out there, they're all great, and we don't like to bash any of them. Again, I'm trained in so many, but the tools that work just on the conscious level, it doesn't really create the rewiring or the change that we need. We have to work deeply with the beliefs, with the body, somatically, because that's where the subconscious lies in order to create the change. And so what I love about the tools that we use, right? The closest I came to it was NLP and hypnosis, because I was like, all right, put someone in a trance state, because that's how we were as kids. We were literally in a hypnotic state where we were suggestible, and whatever people told us, we would just say, yep, 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 without, because we also didn't have our critical mind formed at the time to be able to have discernment or to challenge what we're being told. And that's a similar thing when you're in that trance state, right? Which is when your brainwaves are around like alpha theta state waves, or in that state. And when you can get into that time when your brain is more malleable, that's when you can make the change. And that's what our tools can do. There's a rhythmic process to it, where even yesterday we worked with a group of a bunch of medicine facilitators, so people who facilitate psychedelic journeys, and they're starting to use our tools inside of their work. And because people are already in that suggestible and sensitive state, they can use the tools to get, do the deep work. Now, ours does a similar thing. It is very repetitive so that people start to, go into that trance-like state. In addition to that, it's very simple prompts that work with the mind, the emotions, and the body in the ways that a memory or an experience is stored. So a lot of protocols or modalities or tools out there, some of them are just cognitive based, right? Like cognitive behavioral therapy. They work with the mind. Some are just emotion based tools, and some are just somatic based tools, breath work, yoga. I'm trained in those, right? And so they can work, but it just might take a lot longer, or you have to just keep repeating it over and over again. And I really feel like what's a little bit not for the times anymore is the way that healing is presented. The way it's either it has to take a long time for you to heal, or you only learn tools to cope when the triggers get activated. You can breathe and downregulate your nervous system, or tap, or do something to just calm yourself, but it doesn't actually get to the root cause and create the shift that you need. Or you have to do some sort of repetitive action over and over and over again, meditate, breath work, journal, etc., in order for the change to happen. And most people, they don't feel it as quickly, and then they get frustrated and are like, I've tried everything, nothing works, and then they give up. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So what we need in this time is something that actually can work quickly, that you don't have to just cope when the trigger, or have tools to cope, and that you don't have to do a repetitive action. And that's how these rapid rewire tools are stacked.
Chris, do you work out? It looks like you do. You look great.
Hit legs this morning.
You see what I'm talking about? Ryan, do you work out? I know you do. I'll see them forearms and that on them arms. Yes.
These guns.
Hey, listen, baby. You don't want to do that? I'll pull out my 22s on you.
Oh shit!
I'll pull my 22s out, man. When you don't work out, Chris, when you don't work out, doesn't your internal conversation go south? Don't you start talking bad to yourself, man?
I'm an inner bitch.
Man, nobody's got a worse potty mouth to themselves than me when I'm not working out.
Yeah.
But when you are working out, don't you talk better to yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm nice. Yeah. I'm like
I'm the man all day when I work out. If I don't work out, I feel like a loser.
Again, working out is a way for you to naturally increase your vibration, and it will naturally increase your frequency. And it will naturally change your internal conversation to a positive conversation. It will naturally make your proton, neutron, and electron start working aggressively to give you ATP, which is a great energy source for your body. You'll start to feel better. You'll start to walk better. You'll start to smell better. Everything will get better. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Guys, listen, life is about divine moments like this and magic miracles, and it happens every single day. We've just been socialized to believe that it doesn't happen every day, and it can't happen every day. And let me tell you something. That's bullshit. That's a lie. That's a straight lie. You can be happy every day. Listen, man, I'm about to be 60 years old, and I promise you half the world can't keep up with me. I don't get sick. Why? Because I say so. I know who I am, and I want everybody else to know who they are as well. You have a magnificent body that will do magnificent things. I can show you how to unlock your full potential. I don't care if you're on medications or not. I'll show you how to get off of them, because it's not your body's desire to be on medication. That's why every medication made by man has side effects. The body will do what it needs to do by design. Just get out of the way. You're in the way, I promise. If you're struggling with anything in your life, you're in the way. Why? Because you believe. You see, there's a difference. I don't believe anymore. Chris and Ryan. I don't, bro. I know. There's a difference. So even when you believe things, there's a certain level of anxiety. Is it going to happen? Do I deserve it? Is this real? I mean, when is it going to happen? There's still a certain level of anxiety there, even when you have belief. But when you know something, there's no anxiety. There's none whatsoever. I know when I wake up in the morning, there's going to be oxygen. I know as long as I'm alive that I live in a world of abundance. You see, society would teach you that we don't live in a world of abundance, and that's not true. There's abundance everywhere. The universe is abundant. There's more money than you can deal with. And I'm telling you right now, you're broke because you believe you should be. Okay? And it's in your mind. You know, at the end of the day, I told you, you have spirit, mind, and body. And if you get all three of those energies working harmoniously with each other, not against each other, you'll see how powerful you are. You'll see how quickly you can create things in your life. Because to be honest with you guys, Ryan, Chris, there is no future and there is no past. These are all figments of our imagination. And if you don't believe me, I want you to go take a breath from the past. You can't. I want you to go take a breath from the future. You cannot do that. You only have breath right now. The power is right now. The way you speak about your life, the power is right now. How you act, the power is right now.
The content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe.